Evelyn DR, no thanks, I'm good. Caitlin isn't your priority, and it shows. We spent thousands last season just to watch her get iced out. No screens, no plays, just standing there in the corner like a decoy. And now the coach thinks she's a combo guard. Hell, Evelyn, she gonna put her in small forward. She may play center before the season's out. Will she be starting playing point guard and not load managed? Limited minutes? Question mark. CDS, we all want to know. We all want to know. Nah, not watching.
Imagine paying hundreds of dollars for front row seats to watch the most exciting player in women's basketball history, only to find out the front office was already planning to take the ball out of her hands before you even swiped your credit card. That is exactly what Indiana Fever fans are waking up to right now. And if you think this is just online noise and social media complaining, wait until you hear what the general manager actually said out loud, on the record, to local media. Because buried inside a carefully rehearsed PR response designed to calm angry fans is a confession that reveals everything about where this franchise is headed. If you're a Caitlin Clark fan, a WNBA fan, or just a sports fan who appreciates watching greatness operate at full power, stay locked in. Because this story is bigger than one draft pick, one buzzword, or one press conference. This is about a franchise making one of the most economically reckless decisions in the history of women's professional sports. And the clock is already ticking. Before we dive in, if you have ever watched a video on this channel and thought, finally, someone is saying what I've been thinking, hit that subscribe button right now and drop a comment telling me whether you are buying Fever tickets this season or sitting it out until the front office gets the message. Your opinion matters, and I read every single one.
Oh, they're going to load manage Caitlin Clark, and we'll get to the fact that the Fever are still putting up their little social media posts about buying tickets. And when I tell you, that has got swatted down by fans of Caitlin Clark like Dikembe Mutombo is playing defense going, I mean, rejected back into the stands. Playoff ball, load management. This is starting to sound like a nightmare.
The draft pick that said everything. When the Indiana Fever selected Raven Johnson with the 10th overall pick in the 2025 WNBA draft, the immediate reaction from the fan base was confusion. This was a team that desperately needed size up front. Aaliyah Boston has been fighting alone in the paint for 2 seasons. The roster had clear, documented holes at forward and center. Every mock draft analyst, every fan forum, and every basketball brain watching this team knew what they needed. They drafted another guard. Not just any guard, a defensively minded, pass-first point guard who built her entire college reputation on orchestrating an offense and locking down opponents at the point of attack. On the surface, the front office tried to spin this as adding depth and versatility. But then general manager Amber Cox sat down with local media, and one specific word she used changed everything. Cox stated that while Raven Johnson played primarily point guard in college, she has the ability to transition into a really great combo guard. Read that again slowly. Not, she will back up Caitlin Clark. Not, she will provide depth in case of injury. Transition. That is an active, intentional, forward-looking word. It describes a process that is already in motion. And when you trace exactly where that transition leads, there is only one destination. Caitlin Clark's role on this team is being deliberately restructured.
Will she be starting playing point guard and not load managed? Limited minutes? Question mark. CDS, we all want to know. We all want to know. Nah, not watching. Especially after I heard Stephanie White repeating the story about load managing CC. Fudge. I almost said it, folks. Almost went straight mother effer right here. She'll be traded before the opening day. Hell yes. Guys, I got to tell you, I wish that Houston franchise was already going. All right, Tillman Fertitta.
A combo guard, for anyone not deep in basketball terminology, is a player who splits time both initiating the offense with the ball in their hands and playing off the ball as a cutter or spacer. So if Raven Johnson is being groomed to become a combo guard, she needs someone to share those ball-handling duties with. It is not Kelsey Mitchell. Mitchell is a volume scorer and finisher who does not run point guard operations against full court pressure. The only player currently running that role full-time, controlling pace, reading defensive schemes, and orchestrating every possession, is Caitlin Clark. The math is not complicated, and what it adds up to is a front office that drafted a player specifically to take significant ball-handling responsibilities away from the most gifted playmaker this league has ever seen. The corporate fingerprint nobody connected. Here is where the story gets genuinely fascinating, and this is the angle that the mainstream sports media completely buried. The Monday before the Wednesday draft, Raven Johnson signed a multi-year deal with Adidas. A full sneaker contract, a major corporate rollout, announced 2 days before she was technically selected by any team.
Sent this by Evelyn DR right here. She sent me this on Monday before the draft. Raven Johnson signed a multi-year deal with Adidas right here for them shoes. Yikes. Talk about clown show shoes. Anyway, for those shoes, there is not a world where you will convince me that Raven Johnson didn't already know she was going to get drafted by the Fever.
If you have ever worked in sports marketing or even followed how these brand deals operate, you understand immediately why that timeline is explosive. Global corporations like Adidas do not roll out multi-year sneaker contracts without knowing, with certainty, what media market their athlete is landing in. You do not build a marketing campaign around a player without knowing her team, her city, and her projected visibility. Brand executives are not gambling millions of dollars on a Wednesday draft outcome when they are signing contracts on a Monday. Adidas knew. The Fever knew. This entire thing was coordinated well in advance. That means the Indiana Fever did not stumble into drafting Raven Johnson because she was the best available player on their board, or because a forward they wanted got taken ahead of them, or because the draft fell in an unexpected direction. They targeted her. They built a plan around her. They communicated that plan to corporate partners before the draft even happened. And they never once honestly communicated that plan to the fans who were simultaneously being asked to buy season tickets, premium dining packages, and group experiences. That is not a front office making a basketball decision. That is a front office executing a business pivot while keeping their most loyal customers completely in the dark. When the coach and the GM start using the same words. One of the clearest signs that a sports organization is running a coordinated narrative strategy is when the head coach and the general manager start echoing each other's exact language without being in the same room. Pay attention to this pattern. Head coach Stephanie White told reporters that Caitlin Clark can play on and off the ball. Amber Cox said Raven Johnson will transition into a combo guard. White praised the team's tactical versatility. Cox praised the team's versatility. White said the guard depth will allow Kelsey Mitchell to get strategic rest. Cox said Johnson will relieve both Clark and Mitchell of ball-handling responsibilities. These are not coincidences. When two people in an organization use the same specific words and frame the same ideas in the same sequence during separate media appearances, they are operating from a shared internal script. There's a memo somewhere. There is a meeting that happened, and the message they are both delivering in polished, synchronized language is that Caitlin Clark's role on this team is being fundamentally changed. They're just hoping that if they deliver that message with enough corporate warmth and basketball jargon, the fans will not notice what is actually being said. But the fans noticed, and the reaction has been volcanic.
See, the two worst words associated with the National Basketball Association right now is load management. That's the two words that has greatly assisted the NBA in falling from grace.
Load management is not what they are describing. The phrase load management started circulating around the Indiana Fever in the weeks leading into the season, and the front office leaned into it as a way to frame their approach to Caitlin Clark's usage. The problem is that what they are describing has almost nothing to do with what load management actually means. In professional basketball, load management has a specific definition. It means resting a player for full games on the second night of back-to-back scheduling. It means giving a veteran a strategic night off against a weaker opponent to preserve their legs for a playoff push. It is about games missed, not about how a player is deployed in the minutes they are actually on the court. What Stephanie White and Amber Cox have been describing is something entirely different. They're talking about reducing Clark's ball handling responsibilities during the 32 minutes she is physically on the floor. They're talking about Raven Johnson and Tasha Harris sharing primary playmaking duties. They're talking about situations where Clark functions as an off-ball player, standing on the wing while someone else pushes the pace and runs the offense. That is not load management. That is role reduction. Those two things are not even in the same category. Load management is telling a superstar, we need you fresh, so we are protecting your body. Role reduction is telling a superstar, we are changing how we use you when you are healthy and available. One of those things is responsible franchise management. The other is a fundamental transformation of your entire offensive identity, dressed up in injury prevention language to make it easier to sell to a frustrated fan base. The fans are not confused. They can see the difference. And that gap between what the front office is saying and what they are actually planning is exactly why the backlash has been so intense. What happens to the offense when Clark is off the ball? Set aside the politics and the PR spin for a moment and look at this purely from a basketball geometry perspective, because the X's and O's here tell a devastating story. Caitlin Clark's value to the Indiana Fever offense is not just her scoring. It is the gravitational pull she creates when she has the basketball in her hands at the point of attack. When Clark is bringing the ball up the floor, every defender on the opposing team has to make a calculation. Do they help off their player to stop Clark's drive? Do they send a second defender to trap her? Do they sag to protect the paint and risk getting torched from 30 feet? That constant calculation creates chaos. And chaos creates open shots for Aaliyah Boston, Kelsey Mitchell, and every cutter working off Clark's vision. Now remove the ball from Clark's hands. Put Raven Johnson in the role of primary ball handler. WNBA defenses are brilliantly scouted and extremely disciplined. Within the first week of the regular season, opposing coaching staffs will have a clear picture of Johnson's offensive limitations. They will go under screens on her, meaning they will not fight through ball screens because they do not respect her pull-up jumper from distance. They will sag off her in space and invite her to shoot from the perimeter, clogging the paint with bodies. Meanwhile, what is Caitlin Clark's defender doing? The defender is doing something called top blocking, physically turning their body away from the ball, facing Clark directly, bumping her off her preferred spots, and denying her the entry pass before she even touches the basketball. Because Clark without the ball is infinitely less dangerous than Clark with the ball. Smart coaches know this. Smart defenders will exploit it mercilessly. The beautiful, high-tempo, unpredictable offense that made the Indiana Fever must-watch television last season was built entirely on Clark's ability to push pace, punish in transition, throw full-court laser passes, and keep defenses completely off balance. Remove that engine from its natural position, and the entire machine grinds to a predictable, plodding, half-court slog that opposing defenses will be licking their lips to face every single night. The psychology behind the system coach. To truly understand why this is happening, you have to understand a specific psychological dynamic that plays out in professional sports more often than casual fans realize. It is the tension between the system coach and the generational talent. Coaches who built their reputations on structured, defensive-minded, disciplined basketball carry a very particular identity. Their entire coaching philosophy is rooted in the belief that the right system beats raw talent every time, that hard-nosed team defense, disciplined rotations, and rigid offensive structure can overcome any individual player's ceiling. That belief system is the foundation of everything they do. Then they inherit someone like Caitlin Clark. Clark does not fit neatly into rigid structures. Her genius is improvisational. It is spontaneous. It lives in the space between design plays, in the moment when she reads a defense at full speed and makes a decision that nobody in the arena anticipated. Her historic assist numbers were not generated by running the same 3 sets out of playbook. They were generated by operating with total freedom in a system designed to amplify her vision. When a defensive-minded system coach looks at that, there is a deeply uncomfortable internal question that surfaces. If I just give her the ball and let her play, and we win a championship, history will say she was so brilliant that the title almost did not need a coach. But if I mold her into my system, teach her discipline, pull her off the ball, implement structure, and we win, the story becomes that my system was what made the difference. That desire for control is not unique to any one coach. It is human nature in a high-stakes competitive environment. But when that desire for control overrides the fundamental basketball truth that your best player is most dangerous when given maximum freedom, it becomes a franchise-altering mistake. And the public language coming out of Indiana right now suggests the front office is fully enabling that desire rather than pushing back against it. The ticket push that backfired completely. While all of this was unfolding, the Indiana Fever front office made a decision that turned an already tense situation into a full-blown public relations disaster. They kept selling social media pushes for season tickets, email campaigns promoting premium dining experiences at the arena, digital advertisements plastered with Caitlin Clark's face, group package deals, waitlist promotions, all of it running simultaneously while the front office was publicly telegraphing that Clark's role was fundamentally changing. The fan response was immediate and merciless. Comments flooded in calling out the hypocrisy directly. Fans who had spent thousands of dollars the previous season shared their experiences of watching Clark stand in the corner without the ball, without screens being set for her, isolated from the offense. Supporters who had driven hours to attend games, bought merchandise, and invested real money into this team felt the sting of being sold a product that was already being quietly replaced. And here is the basic economics of the situation that the front office seems to be either ignoring or genuinely failing to understand. People are not paying to watch the Indiana Fever as a brand. They are paying to watch Caitlin Clark specifically. And not just Clark on the floor, but Clark at her peak with the basketball, making decisions, creating plays, and operating at the top of her ability. That is the product. That is what drove the historic attendance numbers, the television ratings spike, the merchandise sales, and the cultural moment that transformed this franchise from an afterthought into appointment viewing. If a restaurant builds its entire reputation on one signature dish that becomes a phenomenon, lines out the door, reservations booked months in advance, national media coverage, and then quietly changes the recipe while still charging the same premium prices, the customers who come back expecting the original experience are not going to be satisfied with an explanation about culinary versatility. They wanted what they paid for. You cannot market the old product while delivering a new one and expect loyalty from sophisticated consumers. These fans are not casual. They are invested, knowledgeable, and paying close attention to every word the front office says publicly. The bait-and-switch framing that took hold online did not happen by accident. It happened because the behavior perfectly matched the definition. The roster decision that revealed the whole picture. The Raven Johnson situation does not exist in isolation. It is part of a broader pattern of roster construction decisions that reveal exactly what the Indiana Fever's priorities are and what they are not. Justine Pitt, a 6'4" perimeter shooter with legitimate professional upside, was placed on an unprotected developmental contract rather than secured on the main 12-woman roster. The official explanation was a numbers problem. The roster simply did not have a spot available under the current collective bargaining agreement structure. But why was there no spot? Because the front office used those roster spots on multiple guards, creating a situation where they are dramatically overstocked at the guard position and dangerously thin in the front court where they desperately needed help. Aaliyah Boston has been asking for a capable big alongside her for 2 seasons. The team has consistently been outsized and outmuscled in the paint against physical opponents. Justine Pitt was a direct answer to that documented, recurring problem. Instead, she is sitting on a developmental deal, which means any team in the league can simply claim her. The New York Liberty, who have been actively hunting for size. The Las Vegas Aces, who want spacing around their core. Any contender with a roster need and an attentive front office can walk in and take a player that the Fever essentially developed and prepared at zero cost to themselves. This is not just a bad basketball decision. It is a symptom of what happens when a front office builds a roster around a philosophical vision of what they want the team to become rather than addressing what the team actually needs to compete. The backcourt is crowded with players fighting for the same minutes. The front court remains vulnerable, and the team's most versatile long-term size asset is available for any competitor to grab. Championship-caliber organizations do not make these kinds of structural errors. And the fact that this decision was made in the same draft cycle as the Raven Johnson selection, the same cycle that signaled the shift in Clark's role, is not a coincidence. It is the clearest possible evidence of where the front office's priorities actually lie. What the Fever must do before it is too late. History is full of examples of franchises that inherited generational talent and made the catastrophic mistake of trying to fit that talent into a pre-existing mold rather than rebuilding the mold around the talent. The Golden State Warriors did not draft a pass-first point guard to reduce Steph Curry's ball dominance when he was battling severe ankle problems. They managed his minutes carefully, brought in a coaching staff built to amplify his specific strengths, and constructed an entire system around maximizing the gravity his shooting created. The result was a dynasty. The Dallas Mavericks did not restructure their offensive identity away from Luka Doncic when his usage rates drew scrutiny. They found complementary pieces that enhanced his heliocentric approach and gave him the support he needed to be his most dangerous version. The result was a championship. The Phoenix Suns, under Mike D'Antoni, did not ask Steve Nash to share playmaking duties with a defensive-minded backup to protect his back. They handed Nash the keys and told everyone else to run the floor and be ready. The result was one of the most entertaining offenses in NBA history and back-to-back MVP awards for Nash. The formula is not a secret. It has been executed successfully in professional basketball at the highest level repeatedly. You protect your superstar by managing their minutes strategically. You rest them on the second night of back-to-backs. You bring in elite sports science and recovery support. You build the system around their strengths instead of forcing their strengths into a system designed for a different type of player. What you do not do is use load management language to disguise a fundamental shift in how your best player is used. What you do not do is draft players specifically to absorb responsibilities that were generating historic production. What you do not do is tell the fan base that their favorite player's role is changing while simultaneously asking them to pay premium prices for the same experience they had before. Caitlin Clark is 24 years old. She just came off representing the United States at the international level and played some of the best basketball of her career. She is healthy, motivated, and by all accounts, absolutely desperate to get back on the court and compete at full intensity. She is not a player who needs to be protected from herself. She is a player who needs to be protected by smart, targeted minute management, and then unleashed at full capacity for every minute she is actually on the hardwood. The Indiana Fever have a narrow window right now to course correct before the season begins, and the reality of these decisions becomes impossible to walk back publicly. Training camp is where the truth reveals itself. Rotations get established, role definitions get locked in, and whatever Stephanie White installs in those first weeks of practice will be the product that fans are asked to pay for when the regular season tips off. If the ball is in Caitlin Clark's hands, running the offense as the undisputed primary ball handler for 30-plus minutes a game, this franchise is a legitimate championship contender, and every ticket sells itself. If she is standing on the wing while a rookie runs the point guard position, the backlash that is currently simmering online is going to become something the Indiana Fever front office has never experienced before, and no amount of premium dining packages or corporate PR language will be enough to contain it. The greatest financial and cultural asset in the history of women's professional basketball is ready to play. The question is whether the people making decisions in Indianapolis are brave enough to get out of their own way and let her. Training camp is here. The truth is coming. And the fans are watching every single minute of it with the kind of scrutiny this front office has never faced before. If this breakdown gave you something to think about, smash that like button and subscribe so you never miss an analysis. Because this story is nowhere near over, and we will be tracking every development as the season unfolds. Drop your take in the comments below. Is this front office making a billion-dollar mistake, or do they know something the rest of us are missing? I want to hear from every single one of you.